Hey gang, Professor McElroy here at 6:30 Digital Animation and Effects 2, 3728, January 2022 section. We're on week 3, learning module 3. Really good job so far in the first 2 learning modules. Everyone is working through Adobe Premiere really well. It looks like you've downloaded all of the resource files to your personal computer and are working through the process. This program is the one program where using a computer consistently where you can store all of your data is really important because the assets are so large. Yeah, thumb drives, external drives, they have big amounts of storage now, but it's still not the same as working consistently off of one workstation. So you'll always see video and audio editors traveling with a MacBook Pro or a really good portable machine that they can store data on, have the programs on, and be able to consistently work through their projects without having to swap from computer to computer or device to device. Yeah, external drives, terabyte drives are really pretty inexpensive nowadays in the scheme of things. But it's still a bit of a pain doing presets and linkability and those sorts of things. So I'm glad that you found a spot where you can produce your assignments consistently and be able to work in the program and navigate through the video editing process. Looks like everyone is asynchronously watching videos at a later date and completing their projects while they navigate through. This course, we do tackle quite a number of book projects in the course of a learning module. Although we're only spending 1 week in After Effects, we are tackling a decent number of chapter assignments. So just remember, I'll be sharing recordings and videos and samples and things I come across that I think might be interesting to feed your brain throughout the course in the announcement section. It's where I'll post the announcements for the week as well. We only have a couple of students in the course, so we've been able to really kind of plug along at a pretty good pace as we kind of learn some of these skills, some of this terminology, and some of the process as it relates to video and audio and animation design, multimedia design. So I hope you're enjoying it. Some of it is time intensive. It does take a bit of time to navigate through the process, especially when you're shooting videos, dropping them into your library, putting them on your computer or your external drive. I mean, there is a process to it, and it does take a bit of time, but hopefully you're enjoying the process, and maybe there's a little bit of a social media video editing expert in there somewhere as you're kind of learning the process, knowing that there are multiple apps and applications that do a lot of the same thing, but it's good to understand timeline, understand filters, understand the process of cutting and clipping and splicing and transitions and that sort of thing. That doesn't change. The app may change, but the thought process and the technical terminology really doesn't change when you bounce from app to app to app. So hopefully maybe this even inspires you to download something on your phone and start messing around a little bit with video and video editing and kind of the process of manipulating a kinetic design, video design. So with that being said, let's just pop real quick into the module section. I try to do these live Zooms in case anyone needs to pop on, ask any questions. But like I said, I mean, I have 3 sections this month, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And I really don't have anyone coming to the actual lab. Even the 9-person web design class didn't have anyone physically sitting in the seats. Most are synchronous or asynchronous online. It might have to do a little bit with COVID and what's going on right now. And we are in that mask mandate on campus where you have to wear it in common spaces in the classroom. Makes it a little bit more difficult for me at the podium with the mask on. Doing some of the lecturing, so it's really nice to be able to record and do a live session and be able to communicate with you as a team, because this is what a marketing team would do in corporate America as we navigate through a distance team building environment, which for all intents and purposes, the last 2 years has been that. Doesn't matter what corporate environment you are in, your teams are around the globe. They might be in your neighborhood, but not at the office. And so this kind of process is a really good one to get comfortable with. So I'm glad DDG students, GRA students, and even non-design students are starting to really get comfortable with, because this is kind of the nature of the process going forward. We're going to be in some kind of virtual environment like this, I think, in most industries going forward. Corporations aren't going to pay for rent and for utilities and things that they don't need to if their teams can be productive, communicating via Zoom and working on assignments independently and bringing those assignments back together. So education is no better environment to learn what the current industry is doing for your industry. And I have to say, for most industries, I think this is going to be kind of the new norm. So hopefully you're feeling comfortable kind of going through the process. So, all right, so that brings us down to learning module 3. And like I said, we are tackling the After Effects chapters in your book. And it's a fair number of chapters, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 chapters. And they're typically 45 to 50 minutes a piece, right? So we're talking, that's why you don't see an out of book project of any kind in learning module 3, because we're talking about probably about 7 hours of chapter work in order to kind of follow through the basic process of After Effects. And I think I highlighted it last week in our lecture. It's very similar to Adobe Animate. So if you're comfortable in Adobe Animate, I think that the process of chapters 2, 3, 4, 5, that introductory process is really going to kind of click the light bulb on what After Effects is all about and kind of how it works in this kind of keyframe timeline kind of environment, with kind of this concept of tweening and editing effects and properties and tweaking elements in your layers and having those seamlessly evolve over the course of your timeline. I think the biggest challenge with After Effects is stacking your layers in a way that has things animating in the background versus animating in the foreground, and just, you know, what you want to have happen in that stacked paper environment. That's number one. And number two, it's time. Like, how much time does it take for you to build a particular animation? Like, how long does it need to animate for before each element in each layer is a smooth visual kind of explosion or effect? And you see that a lot in movie intro animations and even TV show intro animations. Like, watch your favorite TV show and see what the intro logo or branding animation is before the actual show starts, because that's what After Effects is. I mean, you're really building those intros in After Effects, dropping them into the start of your timeline in Premiere, and adding a transition between the After Effects layer and the layers that are your videos. So it really is just like dropping a clip in the timeline. The difference is you're doing more of a vector style animation and intro animation. I love to do it for clients for short web banners, for little multimedia clips for social media. You can animate in After Effects using vector graphics, import that After Effects file into the first, you know, half a second, 2 seconds of your video timeline in Premiere, and then drop your spliced video in from there. So it doesn't take a lot to really create quite a powerful statement. So with that being said, great job so far on the first 2 learning modules. I look forward to seeing your projects over the long weekend for your After Effects assignments. I'm going to go into After Effects, drop a logo in, and just kind of reinforce a couple of the skills you're going to be learning in the first few chapters, and something I already did in my video clip lecture that I dropped in at the beginning of the week. Because this class kind of pushes towards the middle transition to end of the week, I try to post the lecture early so that everyone has time to watch it, work on their assignments, kind of have some feedback questions if the time slot comes for the class and you have a question or something that pops up as you're going through the process. So I hope everyone's staying well and safe and healthy and all that good stuff. I got two teenage boys in one's in middle school, finishing up middle school, the other one's in high school, and my wife is in and out of classes. So we try to be sensitive with masking at all times and just kind of being aware of others. So I think maybe the mask thing is a good idea right now to try to curb what's going on. But hopefully you're staying well and the family as well, and you're not having some kind of major interaction with this virus that's kind of going around and keeps evolving. So I'm trying to be sensitive that on top of everything else, delivering content and being available and also understanding that students are getting sick too, and they're taking a week or two of doing just a little bit of work because they just didn't feel good. So, and it's allergy season, it's flu season, so it's hard to tell the difference between all of this stuff. So I understand. Remember that we have until week 4, Sunday night at midnight. And really, I don't process grades till Monday afternoon. So if you don't feel good one week or, you're just tired or in a funk or whatever, I understand. Just keep working through the process and the projects at your own pace. And let's see what we can come up with to meet the outcomes at the end of the session. It's a 4-week session and it goes quick. And if you don't feel good, or heaven forbid have a bout of the virus, it could put you down for 2 or 3 weeks. So I totally get it. I totally understand. I think that's the reason why most students have really taken the avenue of synchronous or asynchronous online for some of the content, just to be better safe than sorry. So I get it. So stay well, and let's hop into After Effects for just a minute, and we'll play around for a couple of minutes. I just want to highlight a couple of things in my brain as I go through the process that is After Effects. Like I said, I do it for logo animations mostly. Let's go in here, and I'm just going to change the color to maybe a dark gray because I appreciate those colors. Logo animate. Everything else is good. Square pixels, frame rate of about 30 is fine. The rest of the stuff is good. So I'm just going to click on that and drop in my movie frame. All right, so that brings us to the animation now. Those of you that are design students, you probably are comfortable in some kind of Illustrator or vector-based environment. I'm going to bring in my coffee logo, just a file that I downloaded, just so that you can see, what's going on. I'm going to drop it in here, zoom out just a little bit. So here is my logo, and you'll notice it drops in right here. Right in here into my timeline. So here's my seconds of timeline. I turned on my effects menu over here on the right-hand side because I spend a lot of time, for me, working and messing around with effects and presets in my environment, just as much as I do anything else. And so here is my timeline, and I'm just going to go in, and the first thing I always love to do is just kind of drop an opacity fade in here. So I'm going to go there, and then I'm going to bring my, we'll do about 4 seconds, and I'll drop in a new marker and crank my opacity back up to 100%, just so that I can get this thing going in my movie. And so we got that going, and then let's go in here, and I'm going to scale back to the beginning. I like to change scale a little bit. So I'll shrink this thing down just a skosh, just to get this thing kind of moving and working here. So let's go over to my Learn. I'm going to slide this over just a skosh so you can see what I have going on here. So there it is. I can pinch this in and pinch this in a little bit, just so you can kind of see how I work. So here's my timeline. It's animating in. I think I'm going to change the scale and crank this down a skosh, and then move it over to my 4-second marker. And I'm going to drop another one in, and I'm going to crank that back up to about 100%. So that gives me kind of my transition of what I'm doing. Sometimes I'll pan across my position. So I'll bring this over, I'll drop in an anchor point. I'll move this just a skosh, just so you can see what's going on here. And so we'll bring that, and I'll drop another position marker in. And I'm going to move this back over a little bit to right about there. And so now you'll see I've got my motion coming in for my logo. Sometimes I'll do a spin or a rotation or something like that, but more times than not, I'll just bring it in, I'll fade it in, I'll scale it maybe. Sometimes I'll pan it completely across the screen, or I'll bring it up from the bottom just to adjust it a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and tuck my transform now so you can see what's going on. The reason I turned on this effects and presets menu is because I like to kind of check out what's going on in here. So let's go into perspective and drop in my drop shadow effect. So let's go in and I'll just crank it up so we can see what's going on, which is right there. And let's kick that. Let's kick our drop shadow. Let's see what we have going on here. Let's crank it up so you can see what it is. Let's soften it up just a skosh. Let's touch the opacity up a bunch. And we can go in here at our marker and boom, 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 boom. And you'll see it's fading. And then let's go in here and do opacity. Let's drop it in there. Crank it down to 100. Direction is fine. Distance is fine. Softness is fine. And you'll see that my shadow is going to pan in and darken as I move, which is an effect that I really like to do from a effects perspective. And so let's see here. Let's go into, let's shrink that. Embossing, soft lights, posterize. These are all things that you can play around with a little bit. I like to do a lens flare. So I'm going to drop a lens flare in here, and there is my lens flare. So let's get in here and click on that. And let's see here. I like to, so I'm gonna move it back to number 1, which you can see it right there. And I'm gonna drop the brightness and the center. So right there. And I'm gonna crank the brightness down. And then I'm gonna move to 4 seconds. And I'm gonna drop a pin. Crank it up so you can see it right there. I'm going to drop a center point so you can see it right there. So let's move it down a little bit, and let's move it over a little bit so that it highlights the cup. And so you can see that as the animation takes place, the highlight hits the brim of the cup. And there's all kinds of things that I enjoy using, but this is really a time for you to play and to kind of figure out, what you like, kind of what does what. I mean, you've got all kinds of just funky things in here that can really add quite an interesting effect to your technique. So let's scroll down here a little bit into, let's tuck up the lens flare. It will make life a lot easier. So let's go into right here, texture contrast. Let's just crank up the texture just a skosh. So you can see it's starting to get a little pixelation. Let's go in and do center texture. Let's go in and do a slight little light direction. You can actually see it highlighting itself. Okay, and so then we crank it back, and then let's drop the texture in there, and we'll crank it back down. And you'll see a little bit of that highlighted pixel texture happening on the logo. So let's go in and do save as. And let's dump it into, let's just dump it on the desktop. And it's fun. I mean, you have your effects controls over here. You have all your effects and presets that I pulled out of here, my palette. Once you drop them onto your layer, you can do all kinds of things to the layer itself. I mean, it's just an evolution of practice, just playing around a little bit with it so that you can get used to or get comfortable with the environment. I'm gonna go in here. Transform. 4 seconds. Drop in a position. Actually, let's move that back up. This across a little bit. I like to just draw a little attention to this. So opacity. And then you drop opacity in, crank that up, drop a position in. Let's take this and let's move this thing across. Let's just drag this thing across. And then when we get to here, do 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 do. And sometimes I like to, let's drop another position in here. And let's make this position. This position. Slight highlight. You can see it. You can see the highlight. So I'm going to go in here now, and I'm going to let's go with a light stroke. could actually do a multiply. And then you're going to get this thing like blending in, just like that, which I love. So hopefully this helps. Let's do so I'm just playing around with the direction of this. So you could swipe this. And let's I was working on my particle kind of spin there. So I was just messing around with the X rotation a little bit to give this thing a little flicker. See how it's bouncing? If I made this thinner, it would get really crazy. And it would become like this flicker in the background. So just to kind of give you an idea of different techniques and different things that you can do, you can mess around with these transforms. I like to keep them static in one spot, seems more natural. And then as I insert my markers, I start to get a little crazier with what happens in the process. I'll save it. And I'm going to close this. And this file is just like all of my video files. I can just dump it in there. And there it is, right? And I could stack my videos on top of it. So it's just like any other thing. The beauty is that I gotta see if I have, let me see. Let me see if I downloaded and put those in here. Any footage at all. So let's do. And so you get the idea. I could move this. So there you have it. So let's go ahead and minimize that. And there you go. There's my project, my animated logo that I dragged into Premiere, moved it to into my library, took it from my library and dropped it on my 0 second or the beginning of my timeline. I dropped in a video at the end of that transition logo. I could have overlaid it over video. I could have started with a black screen, dark screen, and faded into with any transition, 3Ds, revolve any of the transitions, and brought that logo in from my After Effects animation, dropped it in with a transition over top of or before my video clip cuts, and I could make a really professional social media banner, web banner, multimedia solution, or commercial. So hopefully this little 40-minute lecture kind of got you and connected a few dots from the pre-recorded lecture and kind of helped you as you process and navigate through the book. Everyone have a good week. I can't wait to see your After Effects assignments.